Hello, 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 and welcome to the Brothers of Dynasty live stream podcast. I'm your host, Josh Christensen, joined as always by my two brothers, Jay and Andrew, and we're also joined by an honorary brother of Dynasty, Ralph Martinez, aka Lobo. He's a writer for FF Faceoff Sports Network. Lobo, thanks so much for joining us today.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on. I am honored to be here with you guys, and I think I've watched your guys' show many a times. I think there's not many people who can match my enthusiasm and my energy, and you guys absolutely do that. So I am ready to do this. This is
good. You'll fit right in.
Welcome.
Just get ready for bits. That's just about it. We're like 90% bits, 10% fantasy advice. That's kind of where we go.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
Anyways, for our lack of knowledge, know-how, and just general ability to operate in this world.
Yeah, that's where we're going for. It's all a facade.
Just improv, just yes-anding all over the place. That's all we do.
With a sprinkle of football. I love it.
Before we move on, though, Lobo, are you drinking anything special tonight? You got a beer, a cocktail, water, soda?
I got something real special in this Yeti cup. It's a nice Nespresso pod. A double espresso with some almond milk. So it's still early out where I'm at in Arizona, but I figured once we get this done and over with, get a nice little workout in. So my special drink is a coffee.
All right. Okay. Love that. And I like that you said coffee in a bit of a New England accent there to pay homage to our Rhode Island roots there. A little bit of coffee going on up in your cup. Jay, what are you drinking tonight?
I like the we're vibing because I got a mocha coffee stout from Mighty Squirrel Brewing out of Waltham, Massachusetts. It's called Velvet Moon. Let's get it up in the camera there. Yeah. It's brewed with cold brew coffee, so it's got a little the coffee flavor. Really good.
Oh, the cold brewed.
Love it.
Cold brew. Yes.
Andrew, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm not drinking anything. I just got same old water thing. Brought to you by Organic Climbing. For all you climbers out there, it's a reliable brand to get your chalk bags and crash pads and anything that you want for climbing. So that's relevant, right?
Andrew, you better
sponsor, Andrew.
Stop. Pay us money, Organic.
This is the bottom itself is a hydro flask.
Wait.
Flask.
Andrew, are you trying to get a sponsorship deal without us? Is this what's happening here?
No, that's not at all. I would never do that.
Turns to camera 2.
No, my other camera.
But I'd like to take these 30 seconds to talk about.
All of a sudden, he has like a logo on his shirt. He's like,
"Well, I
you're rocking
have
the
a logo.
Nice.
I've got the Brothers of Dynasty."
I would have worn mine.
It was made by the mother of Dynasty, Carol Christensen. Thank you, Mom. I completely forgot to wear it tonight, but you should have told us, Andrew.
I was wearing it, and Jay even noticed it.
And also, Mom, how dare you not get one for Lobo?
Yeah, jeez. Not cool.
Anyways, what am I drinking, you ask? Well, it's a lovely Aperol Spritz, as I usually do on this program. Because why? I deserve it, and you deserve it too. Pour yourself an Aperol Spritz.
Have you had that before?
No, never had it before in my life, and I don't like it. It's not good.
Yes, Aperol, you say?
We should get to football. We should get to something, but before we do, I do have to mention that the Brothers of Dynasty are part of the Fantasy Football Collective network of podcasts. You can find Fantasy Football Collective at FF_collective. That's KOLLECTIV. On Twitter for all great content like the Fantasy Nightcap, the Fantasy Boardroom, and Collective Knowledge. And shout out to Shane, who filled in for me last week while I was on vacation. He did a great job. You guys kept me off the 2021 redraft so I could stop talking about Trevor Lawrence, because I've staked my claim and my reputation on saying that Trevor Lawrence will be a top 12 scoring QB next year. I don't really know if it's going to happen, but I'm staking my reputation on that take. That's where we are. It's going to happen.
Take, huh?
Yeah, he's going to be Kirk Cousins level next year. That's all I'm asking for, Trevor Lawrence. Give me some Kirk Cousins. That's all you got to do.
Setting modest goals.
Modest goals. I could go crazy and say top 5, but I'm not going to do that. That's not a thing. But today on the show, we are continuing our redraftable series, and we're doing the 2020 draft. So if we could go back in time, redraft our Superflex tight end premium 2020 rookie draft first 2 rounds, that's what we're going to do, knowing what we know now and looking into the future. But before we get to that, we had some football this past weekend, guys, and it was good. I don't really know what to say.
Good? I would say not good.
There was some pretty big blowouts, but I think it could not have been worse for anyone. But, well, I mean, we grew up as Patriots fans. It was pretty bad for us. But that Cowboys loss was rough. I know Lobo, you're a Cowboys fan. I'm gonna give it to you, Lobo, for the first reactions here of Super Wild Card weekend, as they're branding it now. If you want to start with that Cowboys games or any other reactions to the weekend.
I will say it was the first weekend where during the football season, I think for the last 5-6 weeks, there was always an underdog that won and came out and surprised someone. Luckily this week, the only real big underdog was San Francisco beating Dallas. And, they didn't look like the underdog. I will give props to the 49ers. They looked phenomenal out there. And I personally don't think Dallas deserved to win that game. And I'll say that just from a Cowboys fan, a diehard Cowboys fan. It's tough to watch that team every single year not be able to put shit together in the playoffs. And it's frustrating, and I just don't know where it's stemming now, because we used to blame Jason Garrett, and Jason Garrett is a terrible coach. So it was easy to blame him. And now we've got McCarthy. I still think he's a terrible coach. I mean, we've gone from one bad coach to another. He won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, but I think that's all in credit to Aaron Rodgers, not to him. So it's disgusting to see it. And I'm tired of being a Cowboys fan. So if anyone wants to recruit me, I am a free agent right now. So it's tough.
Chargers want you.
Join the Chargers, baby. We need more fans.
Yeah.
I became a Chargers fan week 2 of 2020, and I've never looked back.
I am a huge fan of the Chargers. I will say some of the guys over at FFA Soft know this. But I am a huge Chargers fan, in large in part to Mr. Justin Herbert himself. But I love the Chargers, but yeah, it was a heartbreaking loss. I do think we can't blame officiating. I know a lot of Cowboys fans will blame that, but you can't blame that last little rope-a-dope from the rep. You cannot blame him for it. He was just doing the right thing. So it's
that's the rule.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have that play, in your end of the game, in your 2-minute drill, you got to know that rule. If you're going to put that in there, if you're going to run that with 14 seconds left, you have to know that the ref has to touch the ball before you spike it. Yeah. So you can't blame the refs.
But silver lining for all those who said that Dak doesn't have that rushing upside anymore. How about that 17-yard run?
That's great.
Come on.
And a rushing touchdown.
With half the team lining the sidelines in the complete middle of the field open. It was great. Yeah,
it was awesome. It was great.
And he saw an opportunity and he went for it.
He went for it, absolutely. and you hear, if you go back to the game, I mean, Tony Romo, to this day, I know a lot of people crap on him, but he is such a smart guy.
I love Tony Romo.
I love
Tony Romo. He was to this day still my favorite quarterback on the boys. Wasn't really old enough to watch Troy during his prime, so I can't go back and say that. But it's Tony, and you hear him the second that Dak takes off. He's got to give the ball to the ref. He's got to give the ball to the ref, and the ref just comes in out of fucking center field and just dashing for it. I'm like, give him the ball. Give him the ball. And
yeah, I mean, I saw some tweets out there where people were like, oh, that ref was running so slowly. What were you watching? That guy was booking it. That's 60-year-old man.
I don't know. Like a 4.65 40, I think.
He was running a faster 40 time than Seth Williams. Sage Surratt could not catch him.
But
they're all truths.
There's always next year for my boys. It's tough to have to wait till September to watch them play some football again, but we will absolutely see.
Yeah, he definitely should have went down earlier too. That was the other thing.
Absolutely.
He took too many yards. It was just that has to go so perfect. Like you have to know exactly what you're doing in that spot to take those yards. Ultimately, better off just probably firing it into the end zone twice there at the end of the game. But
I mean, it's not like he doesn't have the arm for it. He could have easily tried. We've got, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are big physical guys. Cooper's a lot bigger than Lamb when it comes to that. But both of them are pretty tall. Cedric Wilson has proven to be a playmaker. We could have just tossed it out there, man. 2 plays. Why not try it?
You had no problem like getting plays to the sideline. I know they changed their coverage a little bit there, but like why couldn't you have taken another shot towards the boundary or two? Yeah. You had first down. You could have taken a shot or two to the boundary, and if those don't work out, then you're kind of in the same position that you would have been anyways. I don't know. It was a bad play call. Tough loss for the Cowboys, but on the other side, San Francisco looks formidable in a lot of ways. Like that defense looked stout, and Deebo Samuel's an absolute beast. I'm literally an inch away from icing that game and making that moot to begin with.
Yeah, the Cowboys kept getting chances like at the end of the game there. Just there were things coming together where you're like, all right, what's going on? Man,
so many penalties that
it's
one of those things that was like a little bit of luck swaying that way, but like followed by a lot of lack of discipline earlier.
But San Francisco is so dangerous because they can control a game because that running game's just so because Deebo gets 9 yards every time pretty much, and then Mitchell's also good. They they block well, so I think they could give Green Bay a run this weekend if they can run like that. They can win just because they can control the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it seems like Green Bay was already good, and then they get Bakhtiari and Jair Alexander back.
I know, yeah.
Great, cool.
That could be. That could change things, yeah.
Let's move on to some other games, though. Andrew, let's go to you. Any other reactions from Wild Card Weekend?
Yeah, following with some of the other very disappointing for hometown team themes, it was pretty disappointing watching that Patriots game. There's definitely been other games historically where we've seen the Patriots go down 14-0 very early in the game. I think back to that playoff match years ago against the Ravens when there was like a big touchdown and then like
Ray Rice had like a 70-yarder in that game.
That's what it opened with, and then I believe there was another like an intercept or picks it, and we just got crushed, and that just sets the tone for the rest of the game. That's the one thing that we haven't really seen the Patriots under Mac Jones really be able to do is like when they fall down that far, being able to rally back. Like, they kept with it, and it could have been a different game if maybe that interception hadn't in the end zone earlier on there when it was still sort of close. That was really heartbreaking because I think they'd actually orchestrated a pretty good, efficient drive to get there, and maybe it had the makings of a more even game, but at a certain point, it just felt like Josh Allen couldn't miss a pass. There was a point, one of the friends I was watching it with, I think there was a point where he was like 15 for 19. It was just like, I don't even remember seeing him miss 4 passes. He was doing great. But I'm like, I feel like he cannot miss. And every time you give him an inch, like he's able to rush, shake off defenders. Singletary also looked good. Just every part of their offense. Diggs, Davis, McKenzie there, who's sort of broken out late as like a nice little like third option for them. They were just kind of banging on all cylinders, and even if the Patriots were putting together their best game, I don't know they could have stood against the Bills and actually won out in that one. So kudos to the Bills on a great win.
That might have been the best performance of Josh Allen's career after he was terrific against the Patriots in the last game that they played.
One of those two is probably the best.
One of those two, but this is his stat line: 21 of 25 for 308 and 5 touchdowns, and he also added 66 yards on the ground. This is what we talk about when teams like the reason why like Mac Jones wasn't in the top 4 picked quarterbacks. The reason why people are going to undervalue players who aren't mobile, it just adds such an element to the game. And yeah, not everyone's going to be Josh Allen with their mobility, but having just the ability to escape like Mahomes or do some of those things allows Josh Allen to do so much with that arm talent, because you always have to account for him as a runner. And then add on top of that, he can make every throw in the playbook, every single throw, like as much arm talent as you could possibly want. It is the prototype for what teams are going to be looking for quarterbacks going forward in terms of that model of player. It's why Justin Herbert's so enticing. It's why Trevor Lawrence was so enticing. Justin Fields this past year, Trey Lance in this past drop, but obviously Mahomes there. It's just the guys who can have both elite arm talent and that level of rushing ability. It's just such an advantage for teams. So the Bills look dangerous because that's a pretty good defense that they beat up on twice now. Watch out for them. Like teams that get hot right now, that's the last thing you want to see is Josh Allen get that level of confidence. And going up against Mahomes next week, so we'll see how that is. Jay, let's round us out with some last thoughts on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, I mean, most of the rest was pretty much blowouts. You obviously saw the Raiders and Bengals were close, but really the Bengals kind of left the Raiders in that game. We'll probably talk about Jalen Hurts later, but that was one where that was a letdown. Him and Kyler, both 2 quarterbacks entering their first playoff games, just laid eggs big time in terms of going out there, throwing just interceptions, not completing passes, being very inaccurate. Like I said, we'll probably talk about Hurts.
Holding on to the ball.
I should say, as far as first, I should introduce. I believe this was Matt Stafford's first playoff win.
Yeah,
Matt Stafford. He lost to the Cowboys, I believe. Was that his other playoff game? I think was a Cowboys loss.
Yeah,
that one.
I think
that was a close
was
game too.
Yeah.
And that was when Tony came back. We were down 14 points in the fourth. And Tony just absolutely brought us back and got us that dub. And Dak could never. He
never has. Never. Yeah. So
you don't have that East Illinois swagger. Get out of here, Dak.
Yeah. For me, it did provide some fodder to the Jalen Hurts. How is he a sustainable starter? I'm not throwing him away with this. You got to give guys more of a chance. But for a guy where there was already some question marks, I guess, like I'm sticking with them, but like I don't know how long the leash is, just in terms of that was a rough performance. I'm giving him next year. I'm giving him time. Not great to see if you're a dynasty manager and he's on your roster. You don't love seeing that just because you hear the noise. And you're hoping that that's a guy who can play for you for years on your dynasty team because he's so, the rushing upside, the rushing floor he provides is so great.
Yeah.
But man, that wasn't it was all the things that you don't want to see from Jalen Hurts. The inaccuracy really killed him. Had some passes he could make in that game he was missing. And so that's my only concern there. I don't think it affects anything, obviously, immediately. That NFL teams aren't reactionary like, fantasy football players, but, not what you want to see out of those 2 quarterbacks there.
I think there's enough pressure on these quarterbacks when they're young to start. I mean, you see the immediate impact that a lot of them have. Guys like Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow that come in and have that immediate impact. And I think that's pressure alone on Hurts. And then you hear all the offseason talk of, are they going to trade you or are they not? This team's absolutely not bought into you. That adds to it. Then
particularly when you're in an off season where this is going to be a rare situation where there are, and I don't want to talk about the Deshaun Watson situation, everything with that. Obviously, that's very grim and dark, and honestly, it feels kind of like off color to talk about trade scenarios with him. But Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers could very well be on the market, and that's a rare situation that you could end in as the Philadelphia Eagles with 3 first-round picks this year. Plus a piece like Jalen Hurts, where, I mean, are you telling me if it was decided that Russell Wilson would waive his no trade clause to go to Philadelphia and Seattle was willing to trade him and you were coming to the table with 3 firsts and Jalen Hurts? No one can match that offer. So that's the scary part with Jalen Hurts. But it also could be kind of a, greener pasture situation for him as well. So I don't know. But it's going to be a weird offseason with quarterbacks given the nature of teams right now. And we've seen a lot of, after like a decade of pretty stable QB life, when we basically had like Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all of these guys were just like set in, forget it.
Carousel going every year
now we're in such an era of turnover with quarterbacks, particularly when the paradigm's shifting with the position and how it's played. That's affecting guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, who would have, like, Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to be looking for a job next year, being traded to a team. I think he'll start, but like Andy Dalton was a starter for 9 years for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a guy who you would have stuck with before, but the position has shifted, like I was just talking about. But we'll get into a little bit more of Jalen Hurts a little later on. I think we should get into this redraft. Again, we are talking about 2020, redrafting the rookies from that year, knowing what we know now, getting in our time machine, going back to the spring of 2020. I don't want to go back there for much other reasons, but set aside all of that.
We're still in a pandemic. We went back in our time machine. We didn't go back far enough.
Let's go back even further to the Combine in February of 2020.
Perfect.
That sweet Combine.
Yes, we'll go back to that golden age of February 2020 when things were so much better. When I got married, actually, that's true. But we're going to jump into this Superflex tight end premium draft, and we're going to go in this order. First up is going to be Lobo, then we're going to go Jay, then Andrew, then me, and then we're going to cycle through that for 2 rounds of a 12-team draft, so 24 total picks. So we'll start this off with the 101 with Lobo. Who you got?
It was hard. It was harder than most people think. I think for most, there's a clear and definite answer for a lot of people. For me, I'm not most people. And I think if you follow me, if you know where I stand with it, my 101 is Justin Herbert. I'm going in a super flex league. I was picking him as early as 102 in a lot of leagues this past offseason. I got a lot of shit for it. A lot of people didn't believe. They thought year one could have been a potential fluke, but the man had over 5,000 yards this season. Year two, I mean, that's a big accomplishment with 38 touchdowns and over 300 rushing yards as well. I think next year we may see him run just a little bit more when they start seeing the success that guys like Josh Allen have, when you start seeing that upside. And when he ran with the ball, that offense was flowing. I mean, I saw in games where he ran, I think it was more than 30 yards, and I looked at it. In games where he ran for more than 20 yards, they won. They won every time. So I think if you start to look at that upside, and he's a big dude. And so with that, I'm going Justin Herbert 101 and start building my team around that. That would be phenomenal.
I think we're all on the Justin Herbert train here. He's my Dynasty QB2 just behind Josh Allen, the aforementioned Josh Allen. And yet you did see his designed runs tick up towards the end of the year, particularly around the goal line. Which was smart of that offense. It does open things up. He's a really athletic guy. And like we said, if you have to, even the seed of doubt that you have to account for that QB in that offense just opens up things for those passing lanes. And Justin Herbert is another guy who just can make every throw in the playbook. Obviously had that one, I think it was at 65 air yards for that touchdown.
Off the chart. In the
literally
metrics,
in next gen stats,
couldn't handle it.
They did not have the leg.
We don't have the technology to properly.
I mean, that was an unbelievable throw, and I remember watching that play. I obviously, as I said earlier, I'm a converted Chargers fan, built up, and I was watching that game. And I just saw him roll out a little bit, and then like you could see he had the space, and he started to hitch step, and I literally, my body was just like, oh, and then he made that throw, and I literally jettisoned out of my body. It was so so cool to me. Yeah, Justin
out
Herbert,
of body experience.
Josh astral projected all the way to LA and just started dancing on the field.
He's just so fun to watch because even he's like Josh Allen. When you think the play's over, it's far from over. And he's such a big dude to knock down. He's 6'6". So I mean, it's incredible to see, man. And I love him coming out of Oregon, and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. I'm excited for the Burrow and Herbert matchup.
Or like just that. Mahomes.
He
Herbert
plays Mahomes twice a year for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that drive versus the Raiders, the 18, that was, I know they lost, not his fault, but God, what a drive. I mean, that drive was insane. Like, just fourth down, just completing passes out of, like, insane.
But also, you talk about the physicality that he has at that size. I just love when he's been able to, like, stiff arm guy. I can't even remember, but multiple times I watched him be able to hold a guy at arm's length and make a pass. Like, I just like that type of physicality, and to hold off like a defensive that is wild, because I don't know if I see other quarterbacks do that and like kind of use that sort of sheer force to hold their spot against like a one-on-one matchup like that. So that's wild.
Yeah, it's a shame he wasn't in the playoffs this year, and so we had to watch that debacle of
Big Ben
in there, and the Raiders. Frankly, the Raiders aren't a very good team, but I mean, get that man some help. Get him some. Rashawn Slater's great. Lindsey's great. The right side of that line is warm sherbet. It's awful. It's just running right
Who's
through
that?
it.
What college did warm sherbet go to?
Warm sherbet, Texas Tech.
Bolitnikoff nominee.
Mackey Award finalist, warm sherbet.
I remember that guy. He was
Colorado State.
Just unfortunately, his college game didn't translate to the NFL. So I mean,
so they moved to the left guard.
No,
all right, this will be
102.
This will be a quick one. I mean, Jonathan Taylor. Anybody?
Anyone?
I don't know if we don't need to explain Jonathan Taylor. I don't think he's arguable with Herbert. The fact that there's even an argument there, like in terms of running back versus quarterback in Superflex. When we did a mock, we're doing a startup mock right now. Jonathan Taylor went over. He went 101 in the startup mock over the quarterbacks, which I wouldn't do. I would have Herbert, but that just shows you how far he set himself apart this year in terms of the running back position. He is the clear Dynasty 101 running back, clear redraft running back 1. Just, obviously the crazy season that he had this year, 1,800 yards, threat to take it 60 yards pretty much at any time when he's on that side of the field. Even if he's 10 yards from the end zone, a 60-yarder could happen at any point, So
he just runs back 40.
He doesn't care. He'll run backwards.
It's like that video game play, like when you used to play as like vintage Madden with Vic on Atlanta Falcons, and you could just run backwards. And then run all the way forward every time.
Yeah, he was that
That's
fast.
Jonathan Taylor.
Right now, he's the best. Don't need to say anything more. He's fantastic.
I think there's like 3 honest to God like foundational pieces of any team in this draft at the top of it, and obviously 2 of them are Justin Herbert and Jonathan Taylor. But let's move on to the 103 and see if Andrew picks the next one.
I am picking the next one. Speaking of the mock draft that Jay just mentioned, I took him at 104, I think. I took him as 104, the first wide receiver off the board. Justin Jefferson.
So many J's. So many J's.
Lots of J's, yeah.
Yeah, just a
really start with a J. It doesn't matter where. You got to be drafted in the first round.
Jamar Chase, too. Jay.
Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Jamar Jefferson.
My name starts with J. Should I try out?
Mine too, guys. I'm hitting the combine, baby. Coming to Lucas Oil Stadium near you. Get ready for my 5.5 40.
I ran a
You're 5'5".
I ran a 9. I ran a 928.
A nice round 0 on the bench press.
I ran a 5K in like 9.5 minutes. That's pretty good.
There you go.
Yeah, that's not bad.
There you go. Yeah.
I got it.
So Justin Jefferson. Back to that.
Yeah, real turning out to be a really special receiver. Man, just the prospects that came out of that LSU team. Obviously, there's more we could talk about. But Justin Jefferson came out last year, setting like historic rookie record season, and then this year following that up, even better, going 108 receptions for over 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, when you just watch him, we've talked plenty about him on here, but he's just the type of receiver that can do it all. And I think this guy, he's going to be leading rosters for years in fantasy football. Not to mention, hopefully on that Vikings team for years. So nothing more to say.
Any worry about a QB change there?
I've
thought about
that
as long as it's not
bit.
Sean Mannion, I'm good. I think it'll be.
Well, yeah.
If it's not
Good
him,
ne's, it's Kellen Mond.
Is it?
Well, that also could be bad.
No, you hear the rumblings around that pretty much every year. I don't know necessarily when that changes, and I don't think Justin Jefferson's necessarily the talent. Like, I think he's fairly quarterback proof, but obviously, like, anytime an offense takes a hit,
there's a certain point that could pass where, even Brandon Cooks, he seems quarterback proof, but there was a stretch this year where he wasn't great. There's just like a point of no return at a certain point. As long as they don't hit that, Justin Jefferson just fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's also the area where I'm just not going to get too caught up on speculating like worst case scenario situation, like just that team crumbling around it. But yeah, no, if Kirk Cousins, like we've talked on this pod about him not being like a guaranteed starter, definitely like he is not someone who you would perceive as the Vikings being like, no, this is our franchise guy. We expect to win multiple Super Bowls with him. I think he's proven to not be that guy. So in a year when he sort of runs out the contract, there's no saying he's not going to move on somewhere else and they're going to go with someone else. But
yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins is kind of proof around the idea that like you can't just read a stat line. Because his stats for the past few years have been good. Like he is objectively a good statistical QB and a really good fantasy QB at that matter. It was always kind of a value. But the reality is you need to perform not just well at some times, you need to perform well at the right times. And that just always seems to be a struggle for Kirk Cousins. And it's kind of a shame, but like I can't imagine him being a long-term asset anywhere. That's not good English. Let's move on to the 104 after I had a very eloquent thought there. And then I end it with saying anywheres.
Then you're like, well, yeah, just saying. Anyway.
Moving on to the 104, and I'm going to go back to the QB being this is a Superflex draft. I'm going with Joe Burrow. Currently, he's my QB8 in Dynasty. I feel if you follow me on Twitter, I feel like I'm one of the guys who's low on Joe Burrow. I'm not low on Joe Burrow. I just don't think he's Justin Herbert. I think that's the only thing that we have to say. But he is an incredibly stable asset for you that while those final 2 games of the season for him were immaculate, I think we need to keep in mind that for his career, he's been more QB 12 than QB 5. That's just a reality of his stats. I think that's more of what you can expect. Jamar Chase makes a huge difference with his deep ball, which honestly is not a huge strength of Joe Burrow's, but you can just kind of throw it up to that guy. And that helps a great deal. Not a lot of rushing upside, but he'll scramble a little bit. It's not a 0 there for him, and he's got a good offensive system. He's very accurate. I think you can pretty much count on him being a year in and year out back end QB1 at worst. And he's going to have that job for 10 plus years because they think he's a really good NFL quarterback, if not a great NFL quarterback, who's a really good dynasty asset for you. That stability is terrific. And it's not just stability in the sake where you're like, oh, this guy has a job and he's QB 16. No, he's going to be around QB 10 for you. That's going to be a difference maker. That's a guy you can plug in, particularly in Superflex. If he's your second QB, you're sitting pretty. And that's super, super valuable. And there's some other guys in this draft that, are really good non-quarterbacks. So to take him here at 4 over some of the guys that are coming next says a lot about how much value Joe Burrow holds on a team.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else to add, Jay, Andrew?
No, I think you nailed it. You are way too low on him, though. I mean, man.
I don't know. It's crazy.
So I got a Q6. I mean,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is what we're debating. This is ultimately what dynasty football debates boil down to, because ultimately there's a lot of just like chalk, a lot of chaos, and then there comes down to debates where people are like, no, you're wrong. And it's like,
no, Jamar Chase is so much better than Justin Jefferson. How dare you? It's like,
what are we actually doing here? Like, we're all going to be fine. Let's move on back to Lobo at the 105.
I'm going with Mr. Swift himself.
Ooh,
DeAndre Swift. I'm looking at this list, and I mean, obviously, Jonathan Taylor is the clear RB1 in this class coming in. But looking at Swift's productivity from this year, just his consistencies when he was healthy is because he's going to get those targets, and he's going to continue getting those targets. It's just the guy he is. And I mean, we saw Kamara do that for 4 or 5 years before Sean Payton decided to start running him and not giving him the ball this year and passes, which is a whole other conversation. But I mean, it's just nuts. But we saw Kamara do this over and over again, ending in top 5 every single year because of that. And Swift is getting that opportunity. So for me, looking at this, it's a very clear decision there. I think Swift could have gone 103, 104 if Burrow and Herbert were off the board in a super flex, but I'm going Swift here.
Yeah, I love Swift is why I think we're all in agreement there. It really is remarkable, his floor. Like he didn't get a ton of touches in 2020, particularly early in the season, still averaged 14.6 points per game in PPR. Like that's the type of floor that you absolutely love. And there is a benefit. It's why I kind of always really liked Eckler the past few years, because I like the idea of an efficient running back. Like who can have that like 1.2 fantasy points per touch level, because they're just taking less wear and tear because it's such a violent position, and you worry about those guys taking more injury. That if you can have a guy who is both performing at that high level, who doesn't need the same volume, like that's a safer floor across the board. Like Kamara, like you were just talking about. Kamara has been more durable than a lot of his counterparts from 2017, like CMC, who has crazy volume and has 2 lost years in him. Like Alvin Kamara's missed probably 5, 6, 7 games over the course of his 5-year career, which is really not bad for a running back. Any other thoughts on DeAndre Swift, Jay, Andrew?
Yeah, I would think this is probably the low watermark for him, to just in terms of that team too. Like a little bit of a mess, especially early on, an offense in flux. You got Goff, new QB, Amon-Ra St. Brown came on at the end of the year. They didn't really have a stable passing game for most of that season. Obviously, Swift gets hurt at the end of the year, so you got to think that the future is brighter when he has a healthier season and maybe a little bit more offensive stability, because the TD production went down too, which you saw that first year he had a lot more touchdowns.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It does seem like the team sort of in general caught its stride down the end there, like you mentioned with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that Swift himself can only benefit from that offense sort of building up together, because as we've discussed, the early on take with Hawkinson's like the only pass catcher like there, and we saw sort of the inconsistency of him as teams really only had to hone in on him to shut down that offense. And I feel like they established a much better balance, and anything like that in the passing game or other play can really opened things up for Swift, I think, as like the best, most dynamic player that they have. And I love that for him if they continue to kind of build up that system.
Yep.
Let's move on to the 106. Jay.
So 106 is a guy going through a bit of people are taking a second look at him, but I still like him, but I think he's cooling off a little bit. CeeDee Lamb, this hits close to home for Lobo, Dallas Cowboys. Interesting guy, the top of that class originally, kind of the 1-1 for wide receivers from this class. Justin Jefferson overtook it with his production year 1 and certainly widen that gap for sure this year. I think we're talking about CeeDee Lamb a little bit closer to T. Higgins now than Justin Jefferson. And the talent's still there. It just hasn't been consistent. He's down around wide receiver 20, in terms of average and even total points per game this year. For a passing game that really started out well, but sort of tailed off a little bit, particularly towards the end of the year for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's really the target share that hasn't totally been there, like what you would want to see from a number one, like a clear number one. Particularly down the stretch, games all under 10 from like weeks 15 on in terms of just targets. And his average targets is probably closer to like the 8 range.
7.5 in 2021. Right. Which for reference, Justin Jefferson's was 9.8 targets.
Yeah, I wanted to push like 10, in terms, or at least see more games where the guy's getting 12, 14, stuff like that from like a guy who's a top 6.
Wait, quick bit of trivia. From this class of wide receivers, Justin Jefferson has the highest targets per game. Who has the second highest targets per game?
From this class?
From the 2020 class in 2021.
I don't know.
2021. Ayuk.
Hold on. I was gonna guess Ayuk.
I was gonna say like Mooney.
Oh no, Mooney.
Darnell Mooney.
I was like, wait, no, Mooney.
8.2. Crazy. I saw that. I was like, what? Okay, cool. That's where it is. But yeah, go on.
That's my main point with him. Is just like I still like him, so I'm still he's still I think the 6th player from this class. Although it's close with some of the running backs coming up here, but. I still like the talent. I just want to see a little bit more, I guess, for a guy that you want to see, flirt with that top, 5 wide receiver season, which just totally hasn't happened yet. You want to see the targets in production get there, but
and
still
I think
a talent that I like. Yeah,
we'll see it. We saw the success that Dallas had. Zeke next year he'll be 27 at the start of the season. They're not going to continue that ground and pound game. Tony Pollard is amazing, and I wish that they would really use Tony Pollard as the 1-2 guy and have Zeke as that ground and pound on third down. It's what it seems to be trending in. But I think if Dallas continues to throw the ball, CeeDee Lamb, they should look at him so much more often. You see other teams getting the ball to their playmakers. The Bengals giving it to Chase. The Vikings giving it to Jefferson. Cooper is he's a great receiver, but his yard after catch ability is not like Lamb's. They have Lamb back there fielding punts for a reason. I hate that they do that, but they're doing that. And it just goes to show you that the yard after catch is there for Lamb. So they just got to get him the damn ball. So anyways, that's just me talking Cowboys and the frustrations of them.
Yeah, no, but it's exactly what you want for that type of receiver on your fantasy team. You want them force fed, like where it's just like I don't care what's going on. I'm throwing it to my number one receiver. That's what you want.
Yeah,
with your guy Devontae Adams, that happens. Justin Jefferson, it happens. Chase, it happens. All the top guys. It's just CeeDee Lamb can be a top guy. I think he just needs a little bit more of that. Where he's always part of the game plan.
It's why I think both it's the best thing for the Cowboys, but the worst thing for another team if Kellen Moore gets a head coaching job somewhere else. I don't think he uses his weapons super well. I think that there is a better offensive coordinator for that team and those weapons that just aren't used super well. Also, in CeeDee Lamb's case, I have him a little lower than this just because he's just got to prove it first. He's got to prove that he can be that top 5 guy because he's really right now you're looking at a wide receiver too, which is valuable. But that's what he's been. Until further notice, there's a couple other guys I'd rather have ahead of him. But Dalton Schultz likely on another team next year. I can't imagine that Dallas A, has the money, or B, wants to spend the money to pay $12 million a year to a tight end. Like, Dalton Schultz is going to get a brink truck somewhere a la Austin Hooper. I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, but he's going to get it. And good for him in that case. Yeah. There's also rumblings that Amari Cooper could be off the team next year.
They have an out. They have an out in his contract.
They have an out. I don't know
how much it costs him, though. But
I don't know how much it costs him. I don't necessarily think it's the best thing because he is a good receiver.
Zeke, they're paying.
They're paying Zeke, but I think they're locked in. They've got to shed money somewhere. And they've got to add something else. And I think like you're in a position where maybe you could draft one of these 2022 rookie wide receivers who are really good, who could complement CD well. Like CD, like I think CD's at his best operating out of the slot where he can get a free release. If you can get one of these outside receiver guys, a Chris Olave maybe see who else is out on the, like you have like an Allen Robinson who maybe could get on a short-term deal, pretty cheap on the market, something like that to complement CD and really build your offense around him and getting Pollard into space and just use Zeke as that kind of short yardage battering ram probably is the best way, but it's Jerry's world, and he's going to do with it what he sees fit.
And we're just living in it. So
yeah.
Anyways, next person.
Kicking punts into it somehow still. Let's move on to the next 107. Back to Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to start dipping into running back again. I'm going to go with J.K. Dobbins, a player who we unfortunately did not get to see any of this year. And probably could have said that about it. Like, I did also do this re-rank before we saw Akers come back last night, but I still that was fine. I don't think it's. I feel
healthy, man.
I like Akers. He's healthy. It's great. I expected him to be healthy.
Akers. Yeah,
I didn't change my priors on him. I still think he's really good.
Yeah, I thought that was reassuring. But yeah, so I'd say that last year Dobbins probably had almost a very similar situation to what like Javonte did. It was a bit crowded in Baltimore, but he still got plenty of usage. Had great efficiency, almost 6 yards per carry on 143 attempts. So in the mixture with the Gus Edwards and Ingram, like over there, like he still sort of like put his stamp, and we were really looking at that big step up for this year, and unfortunately didn't get to see it. But almost by omission, I feel like we got to see that Baltimore system still sort of using the rush in a very positive way, whether it was, more washed up players like, Latavius Murray and stuff at the beginning, or Devontae Freeman, who actually had a very productive, like,
wait. Who was the early like practice squad guys?
Tyson Williams.
Yeah,
Tyson Williams. Who I think we saw in one league someone give up a first round.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was rough.
Oh god,
but
yeah. Sorry,
but just seeing the team, like even in the absence of someone, the obvious talented player in Dobbins, sort of still using the rush in that way, you can't help but imagine how bringing JK back into that with a fully healthy like Lamar next year is going to excel. I think it's the system that we evaluated as to his strengths there, kind of coming out of that like RPO system in Ohio State. Everything set up the way we hoped it would be for him. So despite the injury, I'm still very high on J.K. Dobbins, and I think you can get him at a great value at this point. Again, referring back to our mock, I think I was able to grab him in the 4th round, like late 4th round. Yeah. So that's pretty nice. Like if you decide you're waiting on running back, like you might be able to grab someone like him at a value and still hopefully project towards that like RB1 that you would want.
Yeah. Love J.K. Dobbins. Love the talent coming out. Love the system that he's in. 6 yards per carry his first year in the league. He was crazy efficient at under 13 touches per game, like he was at, or under 13 carries per game. And just something, I tweeted this out earlier, something to note that the Ravens still don't target the running back a lot in the passing game.
That's
but
he's a
this
great
is
natural pass catcher.
Yeah. I think he's a better national pass catcher than anyone they've had this year. But they targeted running backs 83 times this year, which was a slightly more than 50% increase from each of the last 2 years. Not a crazy thing, but you're looking at if J.K. Dobbins comes back, they keep that. Obviously, like target mass, not that simple, but like there is some reason to think that instead of a 25 to 30 target range, you're looking more around like the 45 target range, which is a difference of possibly 1 to 2 points per game if he's getting a target share, which is a big difference. Like that's the difference between like, I don't know, take your pick of players this year that were 1.5 points more than players lower than them. That makes a difference in ultimately how you're evaluating these players on your team and how the outcomes, come out there. But let's move on to the 108. This is my pick. I am going No, I'm not going Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
My head. I almost got whiplash with how many
I just did that for Andrews. No,
you got me good.
I'm going Antonio Gibson here. I love Antonio Gibson.
Sniped Lobo. Lobo loves
Sniped.
me and Lobo together both love Antonio. I was going to take him too, but there was no way he was falling to me. But
he's great. He had a great rookie year. I think he finished as something like running back 12 his rookie year. Has good volume. Was banged up this year. Literally I think he had a stress fracture in his shin for most of this year. Very painful injury. Played through a lot of it in a team that was in absolute disarray. So similar to DeAndre Swift, I think the path only goes up for him in terms of this offense getting better. And 19 touches a game this past year when he played. That kind of volume share there's not a lot of running backs who get it. It's why we value guys like Najee Harris there, who I think is a talented running back. Is he as talented as Jonathan Taylor? No, not really. They're not in the same tier, but they're close-ish in rankings because of that volume share. You want to see those guys get that volume. Antonio Gibson gets that volume. He's somewhere in the running back one mix, and I don't see that changing year in and year out. And that teams can only get better on offense because it was a debacle this past year. That team was rough.
Yeah,
for sure. Receiving ticked up at the end of the year too. Good to see. J.D. McKissick also free agent.
Yep.
Free agent, and also thankfully J.D. McKissick doing better from that terrible hit.
Gibson can do it from the receiving end, and that would stabilize his value too.
Was a wide receiver in college at Memphis, which apparently is running back you. Memphis is just cranking them out right now. Pollard, Gibson, Kenny Gainwell.
Sure.
Love that. And they've got another guy coming out in the 2023 class, I think that's a stud.
He's legit.
I think there's enough. Yeah, he's good. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's good. I watched a little tape of him. Let's move on to our next pick, 109. Back to you, Lobo.
I was between two guys here, and I think really looking at the usage yesterday really convinces me and sells me on him. But obviously, Cam Akers, I'll take the risk of the fall here. He's coming back from that injury, which is bizarre that he's playing this year. I think most people were like, all right, he's done for the entire year. But to see him I think he got 16 carries yesterday in a playoff game.
17.
17. I mean, he looks okay. He looks explosive at times. I think obviously he's still coming back from that injury, but we saw throughout this entire year what McVay can do with his running backs. Correction, we know what he can do going back to when he first took over the Rams. Who was that running back they had at some point?
Sony Michel, Darrell Henderson, Jake Funk. Are we talking Jake Funk?
Malcolm Brown?
No.
Malcolm Brown?
Are we bringing back the Funk? Malcolm Brown.
No. I was just even going back to like when he first took over in like the Gurley days. I mean, we've seen what he can do with his running back, and I think we saw the usage. But yes, to your guys' point, every single running back you just named was efficient in a McVay offense. So next year, when he's gotten some rest, when he's gotten the time, I think he takes over that bell cow. And I mean, some people had him as like a top 5 RB this year, going into this year. So I'll take the risk. I think he'll be explosive in 2022.
Yeah, I like that pick. I had him. I had in this order: Dobbins, Gibson, Akers, in a tier right after Swift before CeeDee Lamb. I like all of these running backs because I think they all have that kind of top 5 upside ability in them. Something about Cam Akers just like there's a little wariness because I feel like there's times where you look at him and you go, wow, holy crap. And then there's other times where you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he's so irrelevant. But I will say, in the game last night,
his tape.
We told you he was
his
wrong.
tape in
He's
Florida
still
State,
figuring it out. You know, he's not a.
But his lateral
ton of
agility,
experience, you know?
his lateral agility last night looked very good. His acceleration off the line and from the backfield, that's still coming back. That's to be expected. Yeah. The one worry I will say, because I talked to a few doctors and physical therapists about this when his injury happened last summer. Those who listen to the show know this on there. The one thing that I do worry about going in the future is secondary injuries after an Achilles injury do become more prevalent. Doesn't mean they will happen, but I'd just be watching out for like calf injuries, foot injuries on that injured leg. And God forbid, re-rupturing that Achilles, which unlike an Achilles, which is very hard to tear again. ACL, sorry. Unlike an ACL, very hard to tear again. Achilles, not the same thing. Yeah. That's why it's such a rough injury to come back from. But he's young. Younger bodies just heal better. And that's the hope there. And you got to be encouraged by what you saw last night. I'd take the risk on him. Let's move to our next pick at the 110. Jay.
For me, I'm going T. Higgins here. Love T. Higgins from the Bengals. Even if he's the wide receiver 2 there, that is proven that they could support that. He even showed that he was sort of more, he could swap with Chase as the 1. That kind of happened late in the year where Higgins had some gigantic games, posted a 43-point game late in the season under Joe Burrow where he got like all the targets that game. He is a fantastic receiver. And then when you compare him to Lamb, I mean, he outperformed Lamb this year from, just a production standpoint, 15.6 or 15.8 points per game versus Lamb, who is down in the 14.5 range. So he is kind of right. Like I said before, he has closed that gap where I feel like he's close to Lamb, where that Jefferson gap I think is a little bit bigger with CeeDee Lamb at that point. Even if he's the 2 on that team going forward, I'm not really worried about it. I think you can draft him. I think he's a very, very high end, probably wide receiver 2 that can kind of flirt with back end wide receiver 1, depending on how that target share works out. But I love T. Higgins going forward, and a player at this point of the draft, like we're still talking about very, very high quality players at the 10th pick of this class. This class is great.
Oh yeah, and bonus, he's also a major character in Ted Lasso, so that's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's cool. Higgins.
Yes,
yeah. One of the Diamond Dogs.
Yeah. There you go. Fantasy Wolf. Anybody? Lobo. Fantasy Wolf. Everyone. Anyways, we went from Ted Lasso.
Lots of good stuff.
Party Wolf. Anybody?
Party Wolf.
Whiplash. I mean, talk about Whiplash. It's just all over the place.
All bits. It's all bits.
Great. Miles Teller and
JK.
What
Dobbins we talked about?
JK. Yeah, JK Simmons. JK Dobbins.
It all connects. It all
connects.
Begins with a J. Unbelievable.
Sweat just dripping off of just going really fast. Anyways, moving on.
Awesome.
I just think of that final scene. Just
it's a really, really
so ridiculous though. But just my wife was recently watching Whiplash for the first time the other day. I haven't watched it in a while, but I walked in the room from work just on that last scene during the drum solo for that, and I was just like, out of context, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, it's just fucking Miles Teller sweating and playing a ridiculous drum solo, and J.K. Simmons is like. Anyways, he's just whipping his head and playing. It's just like, what is this movie? What is happening?
That was the scene that won them, awards. Just that scene.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So, I did. Yeah. It's great. Also, I've got the J.K. Simmons look down.
You do. When it goes to Broadway,
we gotta get back. Oh yeah, Whiplash the musical. Anyways, Andrew, 111.
What pick? 111. At the 111, I'm taking conductor J.K. Simmons. I will break us back into the quarterback. But I'm still going with the J. I think here's the time to return back to Jalen Hurts. As we've said, you don't know what way things are going to go with him, and there's times where there's the strokes of genius, and when he's on, he looks good. And then there's times like this weekend where it seems like he just can't get out of his own way, and the decision-making is poor. But overall, as a fantasy asset, I believe he finished as, he finished as the number 9 quarterback, and over 300 fantasy points. That's averaging almost 21 points per game. Like, that's a great QB1, great asset for your team. It really just comes down to the fact whether he can keep his job, because I would expect that as long as he's playing, he can give you that upside between his rushing upside and the upside of getting those rushing touchdowns. And if the passing is reined in, they continue to. I expect people like Dallas Goedert to continue to be a good target for him. Obviously, Devontae Smith, we love. And if they can kind of continue to foster that situation, I think that'll provide a little bit more of a passing floor for him. But yeah, it's really about what you think the longevity of his career is in Philadelphia or otherwise. Because from pure fantasy standpoint, like, he's great. It's just there's some of those questions. But at this point in the re-rank, I think you're definitely getting your money's worth at the end of the first round.
Yep.
Yeah, it's frustrating because just like it's a guy where, like, we talk about the gaps on players between like being a good fantasy player and being a good NFL player, and I think that's overblown a lot of the times in people trying to like make gaps and make them seem like fantasy analysis is like this special thing that's separate from the NFL. And usually that's not the case. Usually the good fantasy players are the good NFL players. That's just the reality. But this is one of those rare cases where there is a gap between the NFL player and the fantasy player. As a fantasy player, you would think, oh man, this guy is like Lamar Jackson level volume, has the big arm, passes downfield a lot, 139 rush attempts this past year, converting for over 700 yards, used around the goal line. He's averaged as a starter over 21 points a game going back to last year. That's the guy you want, but no job security. We don't know if he's going to be starting next year. Really, I think we're pretty sure he will be, but it's not a guarantee.
Again, with the movement on quarterback, who knows? Like,
yeah.
You've seen teams move on because they see it. They might be like, well, Jalen's nice, but if we can get Aaron Rodgers, or if we can get like one of these other cachet quarterbacks, then all the better for us. And in that situation, I guess you would hope for a Jared Goff like, hey, I got traded out and was obviously the lesser, almost thrown in asset, but he was the starter for Detroit, so. That change of team didn't necessarily kill his starting ability.
Yep.
Yeah. It's tough because he's been so good. But in this exercise, you're looking at what he's given you. At the very least, you've gotten one QB 1 year out of him. And it was terrific, and it probably helped you get to a playoff and was a stabilizing force in your lineup.
Yep.
So that's of value. And was kind of a league winner last year in a lot of respects, too. Just late in the year. Let's move on to the 112. That's back to me. This is where it gets like, this is, I think, the clear drop off, right, in players where it starts to get a little more. There's some wide receivers I love here, but it's wide receiver. The positional scarcity isn't necessarily there, and these guys aren't necessarily difference makers. So I'm gonna stick with quarterback and hold my nose and take Tua. And this is going
my next guy too, even though it seems a little weird.
He had a terrible rookie year. He was better this year up until the last game of the season, which was weird. And
he's been fully mishandled at spots.
fully mishandled, but he was the 5th overall pick. He was still a high pedigree guy. He had a catastrophic hip injury, which I think there's still some recovery from, but you saw a lot of progress this year. And I think after he came back from, I forget exactly what the injury was, but he was out for a couple weeks this year. After he came back through, I think about week 15, he was a top 12 quarterback during that time. He was scoring points. Jalen Waddle was a great weapon for him. Devontae Parker was contributing. He's got Mike Gesicki, who he likes. Still has a weird running game. I don't really know what's happening there. Apparently Duke Johnson's the bell cow now. I don't understand it, but Jalen Waddle's a beast. So that's great to have there. And he was really good. I don't know what the ceiling for him is. I think he's more of a QB2 year in and year out. But in super flex, that does have value, but not enough value to put him above some of the guys above him. But right here, when we get that drop off, I think you got to take the shot on a guy like Tua, particularly now that it seems like they're really committing to him, at least as far as the reports go, even though I think the Brian Flores firing was bad, just frankly a bad organizational move.
But it might
for them.
be beneficial to, because I don't think Brian Flores was a fan of Tua.
No, but like in Brian Flores' defense, guy didn't know the playbook year one. So I would be frustrated too if Tua. Like Tua admitted
I'm not saying
he didn't know the
unfounded.
playbook. Yeah, I know, but it's just like I guess if you're gonna choose, if you're an organization, QBs are more valuable than coaches. That's always going to be the case.
Facts.
So that's the position you go. So I do understand it from an organizational standpoint, and from a fantasy perspective, it gives me more confidence, at least in the job stability of Tua, who does have that 5th-year option. That's also the value in these first-round QBs, is there's literally more invested in them, which provides more stability. So yeah, that's where we are. I don't love the pick, but at 112, getting a QB who could be a long-term option for you, not a bad value.
Yep.
I think it's enough Tua talk for the night. Need no more reactions. Let's go to the 201. Back to you, Lobo.
I'm trying to think of I'm stuck between two guys, and obviously it's going to be Jerry Jeudy, and I'm looking at the value behind him and someone who we actually mentioned, Darnell Mooney, who jumps up quite a bit here. I think part of it, I don't mind taking Mooney over a guy like Pittman and some other wide receivers still left on the board. Over the last 8 weeks of the season, Mooney had the 3rd most targets with 82 of them, which averages about 10 a game, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. And that was a mixture of Justin Fields and Dalton. So I'm really stuck between the two. If I knew who the quarterback was in Denver right now, I would probably lean towards Jeudy. So I'm going to go with my gut and just stick with Jeudy and hope that the fantasy gods get Denver a quarterback that will maximize Jeudy. But I mean, when we did this draft, I think Jeudy was arguably one of the 101, 102s, right up there with Lamb. And I mean, Justin Jefferson wasn't up there with Lamb, but I mean, Jeudy was taken so high up there because of his route running skills. So I'm taking Jeudy here and hoping that they go out and get Rodgers or Russell or get one of those guys there and max
Kenny Pickett, someone.
No, I mean
Manning, somebody.
Anybody who's not Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock.
It seems like anything's an improvement, and we actually talked last week about how maybe the coaching change from a defensive-minded Vic Fangio to someone else who maybe has can bring in a bit more creativity to that offense, because we saw Teddy Bridgewater be able to do it with Carolina, at least from a fantasy perspective, supporting 3 different receivers. So it's weird that didn't translate over to Denver. Say they even continued next year with Teddy Bridgewater. I think if you can get maybe a better coaching staff to make use of him, that could even improve your guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and the others on that team.
I think just get through the back channels to Aaron Rodgers that he can pick the coach.
Yeah.
Either that.
Well, you do that. I mean,
you absolutely do that.
Rodgers, you want whoever you want. You want Brett Favre as the coach? We'll
do it.
The key to the city of Denver, Mr. Rodgers.
I mean, that's what cross sports though, but that's what the Lakers did with LeBron. They let him pick the coach essentially.
That's player empowerment. Yes. Seriously,
that's true.
You get the player.
And I mean, there might be some. It might be one of those things. Nathaniel Hackett's making the coaching rounds right now. Green Bay offensive coordinator. Like that could be an obvious team who wants Aaron Rodgers. Nathaniel Hackett becomes their head coach. He clearly
John Elway can't pick a quarterback, so you probably should just pick an established. Like their only good quarterback was the established Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
So I mean, in the last however many years, you do that, and yes, I love.
Wait, what if they trade for Aaron Rodgers and he's like Josh McDaniels? I want Josh McDaniels
back. That would be funny. I mean, I'd like that. That'd be funny.
I just love that. That would be so great. Let's move on, Jay, at the 202.
Yeah, Lobo. You're right in the territory I am here. Judy. He becomes alluring with the quarterback change. All these guys do kind of in this territory because they might all go through quarterback changes in some ways. You look
Hopefully
at Brandon Ayuk. You look at Darnell Mooney with Fields for a whole year. Not a quarterback change, but maybe the same quarterback for the whole year. I'm going with Pittman, though, a guy who I think has exceeded even my expectations for him. He's been great, and I think Carson Wentz is there next year, but is he? I don't know. Like Carson Wentz experiment this year was not great in the end. It started off okay and really kind of flamed out at the end. And he produced a guy averaged right in that range we're talking about with Lamb. Same type of range, 14 and a half points a game this year. Tailed off at the end as that team kind of tailed off a little bit, but Pittman was really good. He seems to be the clear one there, so I'm going to go with that guy who I still think has upside. Once again, if you get a better quarterback, I think Taylor opens things up for the offense there for passing. I just think that offense can be unlocked a little bit more in the future with a different quarterback.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I like Pittman too. He was pretty good this year. I hope they don't have Wentz next year. That Jacksonville game. So. I've seen enough for you. How much do we need to know about him? And they seem to be in flux, and they can take a vote of no confidence on him and void his contract and move on. I think that's probably the right idea. Carson Wentz is the reason they're not in the playoffs. Let's be completely honest about that. He was terrible down the stretch. He blew that game against Jacksonville. He was horrible in that game against Jacksonville, who
Jacksonville's the Pats game too, where the Pats game, which they could have lost, even though the Patriots were giving him that game, and they won. But Wentz was horrific in that game too.
And there were a lot of games like that where things got swept under the rug because, frankly, Jonathan Taylor bailed them out. Obviously they have a guy to focus on, but Carson Wentz was just asked not to lose games, which he barely met that standard. Again, we've talked about quarterbacks. If you don't have a quarterback I just don't think we're it's going to be very hard for a team to win a Super Bowl without a top 10 quarterback. Just the way the position is being played right now, it's becoming more and more like how the NBA, how you really can't win a championship without a top 10 player. It's just the reality of the NFL, or else it's way, 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 way harder. And you're paying Carson Wentz so much money, an absorbent amount of money. So it's the two check marks against him. One, you're paying him way too much. If you were paying him a rookie contract to be Carson Wentz, give him another year. But if you can get out from under $40 million, is something like that next year, and is it going to be worse with Kenny Pickett or whatever rookie you pick? So no offense to Kenny Pickett. I like Kenny Pickett. He's perfectly fine. But could you get Jimmy Garoppolo? Could you get, I don't know, what other quarterback could you get? Is Teddy Bridgewater going to be any worse than Carson Wentz? Probably not. Because Carson Wentz is it does feel gross, but Carson Wentz is terrible. He's a bad quarterback. He makes bad mistakes at the worst times. That's the problem.
Sometimes he throws lefty from his own end zone.
That's why I made that joke last night watching the Cardinals game, that weird sort of like toss. But yeah, I'm like, did they sub in Wentz? So weird.
He's bad. But why are we gonna stop talking about Carson?
We gotta go rapid fire here.
We gotta go. Yeah, I know. We're going over. We gotta get through this second round. Back 203. Andrew, we're moving on.
Yeah, no, this is the point where it gets a little messy too, but I think I'm going to skip over some of the assets like Claypool and Ayuk. I feel like are cooling in year 2, and I'm going to go with what Lobo mentioned with Darnell Mooney, who I think has actually been a surprisingly impressive player. His target since the bye week, and also when there was less Allen Robinson playing, which you expect, like, if he's drawing better coverage, like he might be playing worse. But yeah, 16 targets, 8, 7, 5. That was like a worse game, and I think Robinson was back in that one. 7, 9, and then 13 and 16.
Yep.
He is pulling it in. Josh, I think you were saying that he was the next highest target average per game to Jefferson this year. Definitely getting a lot of use in this Chicago offense, and I expect things to turn around for Fields in a more consistent year, change in coaching on that team. I'm also kind of hoping they pull in maybe one of the good receivers from the 2022 class to kind of round things out, because I think he could benefit from kind of being paired up with another guy. Like we love T. Higgins, and him paired up with one of the best receivers in the game, also very productive. I think if you could put someone like a Garrett Wilson, who's familiar with Justin Fields, has played together with him, that would be a great thing. But obviously there's other great receivers like your Drake Londons, your Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, whatever, pick your favorite receiver there. But I think if they could stack that together and really work on that offense there, Darnell Mooney will continue to benefit. And if not, I think he can continue to scrap together performances like this. So I think he is a rising asset.
Let's move on. I'm just we're gonna get these a little quicker out here to finish out. Not real fast, but a little less crosstalk on some of these. Moving on to the 204, I'm gonna go with Chase Claypool. I just think the upside's there. He needs a new quarterback who can actually throw it down the field where he thrives. But he's another guy. Like, I like wide receivers because I think versatility is the key to the game right now. I'm not a size queen when it comes to wide receivers, although he does have great size. I think versatility is the key. It's why guys like Stephon Diggs are so important. Why I love guys like Devontae Smith and Garrett Wilson coming out in the class this year. Chase Claypool can run a full route tree, can run from the slot, can run on the outside. He can get down the field. He can catch contested balls if they're thrown properly down the field, and can get manufactured touches as well. We saw that a lot in his first year. There was a bit of a step back in his second year, and I think that was mostly due to Ben. Like, let's be honest, like, Ben Roethlisberger was an absolute train wreck this year, and really anything like down the field, like there were so many times where it was just like an underthrown ball to Chase Claypool. Deontay Johnson still thrives because he operates near the line of scrimmage, and that works well for him as well. Chase Claypool's a little more quarterback dependent, and that's a reality. So I think anyone they have next year, minus maybe Mason Rudolph, is an improvement on Ben Roethlisberger.
Bring back Duck Hodges.
God, yeah. God, honestly, like, give me Marcus Mariota there, or Jimmy Garoppolo, or Gardner fucking Minshew. I don't know. Give me any of those guys. There. Although personally, I want Gardner Minshew to end up in Cleveland, so then Baker and Gardner can be in commercials together. Can they be roommates in the Browns stadium? In those
woke up feeling danger stash.
That would be awesome.
And then it goes to Gardner Minshew, who I've never heard him talk about. I assume it's something like this. Yeah, man, we got stuff going on. That's what I imagine he talks like.
And sometimes.
Look at my mustache and mullet. I'm cool. I have a personality, right? Anyways, that's Gardner Minshew, who we're not talking about. Anyways, any of those guys would be better for Chase Claypool.
True.
Oh God, I just like the talent. I think he's versatile. I think he just needs a better quarterback, and he has a lot of upside that could be tapped, but the floor is pretty low for him. High ceiling, low floor. Let's move back to Lobo at the 205.
I am surprised that he dropped this low, but Brandon Ayuk. I will take Ayuk here. We saw after he was out of that weird doghouse with Shanahan for the first 7 weeks of the season.
It was weird, yeah.
I mean, that was so bizarre. But we saw him pick it up a little bit. We saw him in the game against the Cowboys, and it hurt me to see how well he was doing because it was awesome to see him. He's clearly out of that doghouse, and I think even next year with the upside of Trey Lance and having that arm in that offense, I think Brandon Ayuk will see an upstick there. So I'm sticking with Ayuk there.
Yeah, he was in that same tier for me as well with Pittman and Claypool. A lot of guys who I just think are like the low floor, high ceiling guys who I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but like they could be absolute studs. Jay, 206.
206. I'm going to go with a running back here, but it's not CEH.
Thank
it's
God.
AJ Dillon.
AJ
Dillon.
How? I mean, 101 in non-superflex draft, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean,
we've been off of CEH for a while now, so
we're letting him fall this far. You know who else we haven't picked to this point? Brian Edwards. What are we doing? The breakout is coming, everybody.
Well, maybe I'm not going to pick Brian, but maybe someone else does. He can, not my cup of tea. But AJ Dillon, I mean, that's a guy who's come on, and it's almost a 50-50 split there. It's really, and it actually works. It's kind of a nice compliment, and a guy that can also catch passes too. So it's not even like he's just a banger. Mm-hmm. He's kind of doing it all there.
But however, he is a banger. Am I right? High five. Yeah. Party Wolf. Anybody?
I can't even continue. Just next.
207.
AJ Dillon is really good, and he's going to be
207. Andrew.
All right, at the 207, I'm also going running back. So let's just clear this out, and all joking aside.
I wanted Andrew to take CEH.
I swear,
I'm taking James Robinson. That was right. I know.
Honestly, I had him above too.
I know Travis Etienne's
he tore his Achilles, though. I mean, like I know.
But however,
he
had 18 points a game as a rookie season, which is more value than Clyde Edwards-Helaire has given you.
Chance he never plays again. There's a chance he never plays again.
Didn't you just see Cam Akers play? Come on, James Robinson.
I know.
Coming back.
I will take.
I don't want to defend CEH, but I mean,
I will take a lottery ticket over CEH.
Well, you really hate CEH.
I mean, to be honest, though, the Achilles
James Robinson
is rough.
Really good 2 years though.
He's been really good for 2 years,
like,
and I just think he's a good running back. I just think
I have him like the next
guy.
2 picks. I do have.
Hopefully he comes back from that Achilles and is healthy. But as we've talked about with Cam Akers, there's some later injury concerns, and obviously the ETN thing comes in as well. But at that point, I still have him over CEH as well. Let's go to the next pick, which is me. At the 208.
You're picking CEH, right? Josh is like, move CH down.
No.
God fucking damn it. No, I have to because my next 2 guys are CEH and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
What? Peoples-Jones?
I know Lobo would pick, I think, a guy over CH, but I'll see if Lobo
I'm trying to think of if there's another guy on here.
I know it's coming.
Wait, did I miss someone? I don't know.
No, I don't think you
know what? Actually, no. I'm not doing this.
Visca.
I'm not taking Visca. I'm taking Cole Kmet. It's tight end premium.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
fine. That's fine.
60 receptions this year. In year 2, year 3 is famously the breakout year for tight ends, and I like an ascendant offense there. Hopefully Jimmy Graham and the other 7 tight ends on that roster aren't there anymore, and they kind of hand the keys over to Cole Kmet, who's looked good at times during the past 2 years. So in a tight end premium league and given the positional scarcity, I like taking Cole Kmet here.
Yep.
Let's move back. Last pick for you, Lobo, at the 209.
Lobo. Do it.
I am going with my other boy, who I have preached all off season. He didn't start off hot, but I'll tell you, once Manny Sanders went down, he was a shining star. Gabriel Davis. I'm taking Gabriel Davis here. I think in the dynasty, Manny Sanders is gone next year. I'm looking at the pieces that come into play for Buffalo. He's proven to be a reliable target for Josh Allen. I mean, his rookie year, he had 7 touchdowns this year. Proved that down the road when Manny was out. So I'm excited for Gabe Davis in his future there in Buffalo. With Josh Allen there, it's to have a wide receiver 2 in that offense, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, anytime he was like at least the third option, it was better. And last time we talked about him, I was like, I don't know about Gabe Davis. Like the touchdowns are gone, and he scored 4 after I think the last time we talked about him on this show, he scored 4 down the stretch, which was nice to see.
Yeah,
and he was good in that game this past week too.
Yeah, it's just if he can be a higher option in that offense, like 2 or at least even 3, he's still viable at that point. But with those guys out of the offense, if he's the 2 there, man, like there's some upside if he can, be a trusted number 2 there. Like, yes, please, with Gabe Davis. So I'll take my pick here. This is my last pick. I'll take CH. Fuck it. I don't even want to talk about it.
I do have to say we've been hating on CH.
I mean, it's ridiculous
for a long
that
time.
I had to take him at this point, but he's still the third best running back on the Kansas City Chiefs, guys. So,
oh man, yeah, he's no Darrell Williams or Derek Gore.
Jerick McKinnon. Did you see?
Oh, I'm sorry. Fourth best running back on that team. Jerick McKinnon.
Finally.
Post hype.
I mean, he's come back from the dead.
Sleeper. What is Jerick McKinnon? A post hype sleeper or a post hype sleeper? Where are we?
That one.
As many posts as you could put into it without being ridiculous. Yeah,
a post Malone hype sleeper.
Yes, correct. But CEH, sure. He's not terrible. He's probably fell too far here, but
yeah, he definitely fell too far. But it's fun. We're having fun.
It is fun. We're just having fun.
Me
here,
saying
guys.
I'll never pick him. It's just that's.
I probably don't end up with him. We don't end up with him in leagues because there'll be someone who likes CH probably more than you. If you're down, down anywhere near this territory, you're not getting CH in a startup. So
no, I don't know where did he go in our mock that we were doing. I'm sure he's still going like top 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Like
he still goes pretty far. I mean, it's the team. It's really the team, and it always was with him. That team was alluring because those running backs do produce. It just never seems to be him, which is weird. But at this point of this draft, I think he still falls into somewhere back end of the second round for him.
Let's bring it on home, Andrew. We've got 2 more picks. This is your last pick of the 211.
Yep, I'll just go with the wide receiver that fits this range that I've liked for a while.
I know
Dan
exactly.
Jefferson.
Yep.
I once when Robert Woods went down, I would have liked to have seen. He picked up a little bit and kind of had a stretch in the middle where he got a bit more productive. I was definitely seeing more like 6-7 targets a game than less than that. But I think towards the end of the season, OBJ maybe kind of like supplanted that spot there. But he's still young and like a good developmental prospect there in LA. So I like him. He's got good ball skills. He's a good route runner. Was probably the way I had evaluated him as probably the next best route runner to Jerry Jeudy in this class. Like that was kind of my big thought on him. So I think that with skill like that there's still progress to be had with him. So I like him as a late second round stash.
He gets a lot of late separation. I think he's good down the field. Not a high. With talking about with OBJ coming in there and Robert Woods will be back. The target share is not what you'd like it to be, but yeah, still like the talent there with Van Jefferson. So now we're rounding it out with my last pick at the 212 there. It's time for friend of the pod, our favorite, the one, the only Michigan Wolverine, Donovan Peoples Jones,
the party
Peoples Jones, me and People's Jones.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Good night.
Yeah, it's the end of the show, everybody. I don't need to explain.
Pour out some cotton candy brandy. This draft is over.
Party Wolf! Party Lobo, which means we're ending it. I'm not giving anything about People's Jones. I just like them.
Said enough.
I just like the name. Said enough. That's it. Thanks for joining us. We've got an hour and a half tonight, and thanks to a special guest tonight for Lobo, and that's at Lobos FF Den on Twitter. Check him out there. Lobo, give us some plugs. What are you doing? Where can people find you? All the handles, all the stuff.
All the handles, all the stuff. Right now at Lobos FF Den, as you mentioned. Thank you guys for having me on, man. It's always a blast. Most people can just find me at my Twitter. I'm joining podcasts all the time. All my content is there for everybody. Also have the ability to, you're more than welcome to hit me up in the DMs, slide into the DMs, and ask any fantasy questions related with football. I'm there for it. I'm super pumped. We've got some content coming out. I'm going to be writing some articles here with FF Face Off here soon. Some off-season buys, and I'll be doing something special with the off-season here with some free agents that I'm thinking of buying low and selling high on some folks. So coming out soon, but it was a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me, and anytime you need a guest, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. I will love to have you back on the show as our off-season continues and we get into some of these off-season topics. We'll definitely want to talk to you about your free agents. And you heard them. Y'all slide into those DMs. You heard it here. just slide into
Take that how you will.
And of course,
bots,
Russian bots,
porn spam,
spam. Exactly. So if you have an OnlyFans, just slide into those DMs. And thanks as always to my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Lobo, for joining us. This was a fun show. You can find me at JAYC_DFF on Twitter. Also doing some stuff for Going for Two this off season. And then we'll have a podcast, some episodes with Fantasy Cheat Sheet on the Going for Two Live network coming up probably in February, March.
Am I on those? Am I going to end up on those again?
You're just a rotating member of the team.
We'll just keep getting an hour's notice.
I'm sure you will be on an episode. Yeah, you just need an hour by yourself where you yell at people
true.
You hate on Twitter.
There was one time where I was pretty drunk on the show and did come on. Sorry, Jeff.
When your cheat of the week was, hey, just have fun with it.
That really was one of my cheats. I had an hour to prepare. I had started drinking, and I had to come up with 4 things. I came up with 3, and then my last was just have fun. Thank you, Andrew. Moving on. We got to finish the show.
Thanks, Josh. And yeah, handles at DrewC_music. That's Twitter and Instagram. And then any of the band stuff for music, like our theme music for my band Ghosts in the Snow. Go to the website, ghostinthesnow.com. That'll lead you to all the socials at Facebook and Instagram, and also to the streaming sites like Bandcamp and Spotify, Apple Music. It's all there. Done.
Great. Way to end that. Way to end that definitively, that was not like you were going on with the sentence at all. It's all there.
I wanted.
This is a point of the sentence that I'm going to stop.
We gotta end this. It's like, how long? It's gone on way too long. I'm Josh Christensen, your host. You can find me at DFFJ Chris. We're ending this broadcast. Thanks everyone listening.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. I'm gonna hold up my truly hard
Don't put it in front of your face.
Back to you, Jerry.